Hey.
How's it
Oh, good. How are you?
going? Good. Yeah. Goal club fitting.
Oh, shoot.
Let's see. Where are you at? Not you, Patrick.
Uh, how's it going?
Good. I'm ready for a weekend, I guess.
Uh-huh.
How about you? From the newer Safeway. We also have registered massage therapists, physiotherapists who do acupuncture and IMS. We have active rehab with kinesiologists, and we also specialize in concussion management. We are currently seeing all patients not in person, but we are doing virtual care. So even if you've been in a car accident, we're taking on new patients as well. So feel free to give us a call. The number will be at the end of the webinar here. Yeah, so I just wanted to thank everyone for tuning in as I do each time, because everyone that watches here, you guys are supporting local, which is very important to us, and we really appreciate any support we do get. And as Stephanie said, we called this Explore Local because we're all isolated at home. We don't have the opportunity to go and experience and enjoy what our Tri-Cities has to offer. So we figured, let's bring everything to you from the comfort of your home. So hopefully you've enjoyed any that you've watched, and any other ones moving forward. And today is going to be pretty awesome because we've got Patrick Lago here. He's the owner of Lago Golf Academy, which is based out of the Westwood Plateau Golf Club. He'll explain a little bit more in a second, but it's going to be pretty visual and interactive. Some of you may have seen a little sneak peek there as we were waiting to start this up. But he's going to talk about, basically the fundamentals of what makes a good swing, tips on how to putt properly so you don't four-putt like myself. We're going to talk about, if you want to get some personal coaching, what are some things you should look for in terms of finding the proper coach, tips that you can do at home, not just now when you're isolated, but even moving forward, right? The more you practice, the better you're going to get quicker. We will do questions and answers throughout. So if you have any questions, fire them in the chat box, and I will put you on mic, and you can ask Patrick yourself, or if you're a little shy, I can ask for you. But here's an opportunity to talk to a pro. You don't get that very often, so if you have a question, please fire away. We encourage you. Just a quick little story of how I met Patrick. Not sure if he remembers, but I was at a chamber event at the Westwood Plateau, and he was kind enough to donate his time, and he brought one of his virtual kind of swing analysis, and just even after a couple strokes, he's able to just throw up an iPad and half screened my swing and pause it on a perfect spot, and somehow pause it on a spot of another professional golfer on the tour, and just compared how our swings looked. And it was just, I'm very much a visual learner, so to have that technology, it was so much easier for me to grasp why I was not hitting the ball straight. So you're going to see a lot of the techniques and equipment that he has that will essentially turn your game around. So we're pumped to have him on here. So at the end of this, we will do a draw, and he has donated a 1 hour full swing analysis. This will be in person once everything opens up again. So stay tuned for that. We'll do that at the end. And without further ado, let's get into the fun stuff, Patrick. So introduce yourself, a little bit about your business, and take us through some tips here.
Sounds good. So my name is Patrick Lago, owner and director of instruction here at Lago Golf Academy, located at Westwood Plateau. We're based out of our instruction studio is based out of the executive 12-hole golf course, and then the Westwood Plateau Golf and Country Club, we have access to use that facility as well to do playing lessons and on-course instruction. So Lago Golf Academy, we've been established now almost for our official launch date was last year, June 1st. And so we're almost coming up to a year of being in business. Some pretty strange times going on right now, but just glad to be able to kind of inform you guys of how to improve your golf game, things to look for an instructor, and hopefully help you save some strokes when you go out in the golf course. Our facility, the main reason why I launched Lago Golf Academy is just to be able to provide a holistic approach to golf instruction. So with our facility, which I'll give you a tour around near the end, is just being able to provide a good quality level of instruction from a variety of different avenues. So we have myself as the head instructor. I have a head female instructor. She strictly does women's golf instruction. We have a junior instructor that teaches the majority of our beginner junior lessons. We have a adult group lesson instructor, which is going to be taking a back seat for a little while. And then we also have a fitness coach. So our head fitness coach is Lindsay Mannion, who's one of the top golf fitness coaches in in British Columbia, if not Canada. So we have her a part of our team. And yeah, I know we also have a master club fitter by the name of Terry Pasowski, who's worked with PGA Tour players getting their clubs fitted and spec'd out. So the main thing is just being able to provide a one-stop shop for you guys to be able to help you improve your golf game in any avenue you see fit. So whether you're a complete beginner all the way up to an elite elite golfer, and whether you need your clubs fitted by one of the top master club fitters in North America, or you just need to cure your slice and all that fun stuff. So that's how I've designed this business. I'm very fortunate to be a part and partner up with Westwood Plateau, and to be able to have the opportunity to have this wonderful facility and access to the 12-hole executive course, and obviously an 18-hole championship course on the side of a mountain. So I like to think that I have one of the best offices in the world, so I'm pretty happy about that, and really enjoying it. So yeah.
All right. So what are we doing first here?
So first we might as well touch base, like what you should kind of look for when you're getting a golf getting a golf lesson, or what questions you should kind of ask. So I'm not expecting you to come and get lessons from me. I'm expecting just to be able, if you're not within the area and you have a facility closer, that's perfectly fine. We're all a big happy family, and obviously us as instructors are here to help you become better. So that's the most important thing. But with the instructor, what you want to make sure of if you're looking for a golf coach, what you pay for is kind of what you get. But you also want to make sure that they have certain things in play. At least that's what I would suggest, especially with now the innovations and everything that's heading towards with golf instruction. So first and foremost is making sure that if you want quality instruction, their sole job should be golf instruction. I have nothing against golf pros. I used to be a golf pro where I'd work in the pro shop and do the retail and all that stuff in between, and then teach Mr. and Mrs. Smith after I'm done working 8 to 10 hours a day and do a couple lessons. And I really should be refunding Mr. and Mrs. Smith because the quality of lessons that I gave them at the beginning was terrible. I had very little education, kind of taught what I saw on the Golf Channel or on YouTube, and it just wasn't quality instruction. So for myself, I'm glad to say I'm a little bit better now. I've taught over 20,000 hours of instruction under my belt, have certifications with Callaway as a master club fitter, TPI, which is called Titleist Performance Institute. They touch base on the mobility and stability of your body, and how to diagnose if there's any restrictions with your body, to basically steer them towards a chiropractor or a physio, such as your business, to make sure that they're able to get into the right position. So obviously I couldn't get someone into the right position of their swing if they're not physically able to get there. So an example of that is like my rotator. A lot of people have an injured rotator cuff. So when we do, it's called a 90-90 drill, where you get your arm 90 degrees and 90 like this, and you try to rotate it up. Well, here's a good position because it's matching to my spine. If I can go a little bit more than that, which you can see I can, I have a good rotator. A lot of golfers, they have a minimum, like if they have an injured rotator, they can only get to here. So when they swing up to the top of their backswing, they're going to get a flaring elbow. That's because they can't get into that position due to their rotator. So for me to try to get someone into this position, it's impossible. So if I can't diagnose that and I'm trying to get someone in a position they physically can't get into, that's pointless. Like and you're not going to have a good lesson. You're going to feel like you're in a lot of strain in your shoulder, and it's going to be an unenjoyable experience, and then you're not going to fix it. And that's where steering someone towards a physio and stuff like that will, and give them stretches and mobility things they can do to help alleviate that. Or just, if they can't do that, then obviously you got to work with what they have. And so that's the important thing in regards to making sure the instructor has some level of certification, some level of knowledge. That's extremely important. technology, like you said, like when we did the video analysis, like that's bare bones minimum. As you touch base, visual learning is crucial. So they should do video. Honestly, even an iPhone's fine, but it's pretty small of a screen. So I like an iPad. iPad Pro is the best one because it does 240 frames per second. So there you'll get a decent enough image, slightly blurry as the club's moving faster through the downswing, but it's a decent enough video recording. And to record your swing, do it as well. Couple pro tips when you are filming is making sure, or when the instructor is doing it, is making sure that it's in the right spot. And so there's two different ways that most instructors do this, is either lining up with the club line, so your target line of where you're aiming, or lining it up with your hand line. Right here, it's kind of lined up with my hand line. So this would be obviously the target line. So, but making sure they're always in the exact same spot, because the camera angle can mess stuff up. Like it's crazy how if you're off by just a little bit of the camera angle, it can make the swing look extremely different. So that's another thing that's really important when someone's filming your swing, that's actually in the same spot each and every single time. And then launch monitor. I'm very fortunate to have a Foresight GC Quad launch monitor. TrackMan's the other one that I definitely recommend. Flight Scope is kind of a third place ranker in regards to the technology, just because the accuracy level is a little bit inconsistent, but TrackMan and Foresight GC Quad, those are the two launch monitors that I would, if you're looking to get some good diagnosis of what your club is doing and what your ball is doing, it's absolutely phenomenal. So if you pair video with the data you get from what your club and ball is doing, and you don't need to know all the information, like there's a lot. You get over 21 different points of data on every single shot that you hit. That you don't need to know all those points of data. But what you do need to know is that the instructor knows that data and can explain it to you in a very simple, basic model. So like attack angle is when you hit your ball, and a negative attack angle is your club's traveling down when you hit it, and a positive attack angle is when it's swinging up. That's a big factor on whether you're going to either hit the ground at the right spot, or whether you're going to skull it or chunk it, or hit it off the center of the club face. So that's a big factor. And what your club path is doing. So a lot of people think their club's going straight down their target line, where this will diagnose it precisely into a 0.1 degree angle of your target line, what your path is doing, which is phenomenal. So then you can really get heightened focus and get that level of precision. Also, if you can find out where it hits on the club face, like whether you hit it low on the club face or high on the club face. So it gives you some good solid data. So a pretty big investment, but worth it to be able to allow for a quality learning experience and to allow people to understand exactly what their club's doing, and then with the video exactly what their body's doing. And then it makes it really easy for you to basically provide them the feedback of this is what you should do. Obviously, we don't want cookie cutter swings. I'm a huge believer is just to make sure that you're doing your natural swing, but just taking away the stuff that you don't need to do, all the extra stuff that gets yourself into trouble. So that's the thing. And then there's tons of training aids that I've invested in that are pretty good quality to help work on different things. One of the newest ones that I think is absolutely phenomenal is called the Plane Mate. Tour Striker is the company that makes it. They're basically all sold out, but it's like this waistband thing that has a strap and connects to your golf club. It's one of those gimmicky things that when you look at it, you think it's hilarious, but it's actually really useful and really helps you improve your golf game. So, but yeah, we have everything under the sun here, which is
do you
nice.
have that one? Do you have that one there with you?
Yeah, I have it up here. It's a nifty little gizmo. So this is what it looks like. It's a belt you strap on around your waist. This lovely thing attaches to your golf club. As you can see, it looks like a funny gizmo. And then you attach it to your golf club, and it helps kind of work on the route of your golf club and helps eliminate kind of the over the top slice, and just get your hands and wrists moving in a better motion. So it's absolutely phenomenal. Like it's a really good training aid. They also come up with a ball that's like we touched base on with that elbow position. So if someone doesn't have a good rotator, obviously this wouldn't work for them. But this little ball here, you put between your forearms, and then you swing back and swing through. And this allows for you to keep that connection. But obviously, if I have that bad rotator, this is going to fly out and drop out, it is what it is, but it's good training.
So Just a quick question on that, because now that's the second time we've come up with the rotator cuff in terms of lack of that range of motion. If someone has that lack of range of motion, is there a certain aspect of their stroke or swing or where the ball ends up that they may think to themselves, if I keep doing this, maybe I do need to check out my mobility?
Oh yeah, 100%. So generally you can, if you just do this test, that's the big one. So you just get, 90 degrees, so create a letter L and then rotate up.
Yeah.
And then if you can go beyond your spine, you're good, or at least 90. But if you're short of that, then you know that you're inhibited. Generally with that, what I usually suggest people to do, or what the swing faults are with that is, because your elbow's flared out, you're generally going to swing over the top, or you're going to get stuck coming down, then you're going to flip. Chunky shots are a given, generally a big slice as well. So the club travels, because that elbow's flared out, it's kind of like you're going to punch forward. So the club travels outward and then chops out to in. Showing you as a righty, because I teach way too many righties. I don't think there's probably that many lefties in the crew. But same thing in regards to that position and rotating over. So that's generally what I see, and creates a little bit of inconsistency. Easy little fix is honestly just a shorter swing. Because if I can get myself going back, I'll show you from the righty view. If I can get myself back to here, I'm not getting my elbow way back behind me. So then from a shorter swing, I can still route the club down a decent target line, establish a good path. And from there, you're just going to try to rotate your body pretty quickly to create some more speed and power to be able to help get that. So if the person's like, I had a ex-CFL player that both shoulders were mangled. And he did all the physio in the world. There was no motion. Like, it was basically seized up almost. So for us, we had to MacGyver some stuff. And basically I had him aim about almost 40 degrees this way offline. And then he'd get that flared elbow, but a shorter swing, and then he'd come over the top. But then his club path, because he was aimed this far over, his club path actually went down his target line. And so we're able, because of the technology and stuff, we're able to kind of get that dialed in. So he'd hit a little tiny fade rather than this banana slice that he would tend to. He had a little bit of an anger issue, so he tended to throw his golf clubs into the woods periodically. So
I've done that a few times. So obviously you've got a lot of awesome equipment here, which I think you're going to show how that works in a second. But if someone is just going to the range for themselves, doesn't have the equipment, we're not professionals at this point, do you have any tips for, like, what are some basic fundamentals that, like, we should know or work on when we're going to the range?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So first step is, obviously, if you don't have a set of golf clubs, most driving ranges will have clubs free to use. I suggest that you use basically 3 clubs. If you don't have your own set. If you do have your own set, then use obviously your full kit and caboodle. But first thing I want you to always do is warm up with a wedge. So generally, if you don't know golf clubs, that's either a pitching wedge, so it has a letter P on it, the letter S on it for a sand wedge, or it will have a degree angle. So this one right here, not sure if you can see it, but it says 56 degrees. So something along those lines, that's what you're going to start off with to warm up. Always start off with small swings. Like us, anyone that works in a business, I know they're usually working at a desk all day, ripping over the driving range, hopping out of their car, and then start swinging. Worst thing you can do is grab a driver and start swinging out your shoes, or even a 7-iron. What you want to do is start off with a short club and warm yourself up. Now, there is, with our fitness coach that we have, and obviously with myself, we try to force people to do a dynamic warm-up if they haven't had time to do a static stretch well in advance. So our elite golfers, we make them do like about a 30-minute static stretching to get their whole body warmed up and loosened up. And then when they get to the driving range, we also then have them do a dynamic warm-up. So a dynamic warm-up is just getting motion, warming up your hips, getting your legs swinging back and forth, so you're getting that loosened up, because that generally, if you don't have mobility in your hips, all tissues are interconnected, so that's where you can tend to get some lower back pain. Your thoracic spine, so your upper part, you want to get mobility with that, so keeping yourself stable with your lower body, club over top of your shoulders, first being stable, doing this about 10 reps, and then allowing for yourself to then add mobility, going back and through and getting that rotation. Forearms, just forearm stretching, arm circles, doing the kid taught me this, where it's like Cheerios, tricycle wheels, bicycle wheels, airplane wheels, and then transport truck wheels, and making it bigger and bigger and then smaller and smaller, and doing it both ways, forward and back, but not to like overexert and go way back here, but just kind of nice, easy, just to kind of warm up your shoulders. And that's kind of key. And then actually a really good one is actually getting yourself lunging forward like this. So you're basically stabilizing your lower body and then turning back and turning forth. That allows for you to create separation from your lower body and your upper body, which is pretty crucial for you to be able to create some power and speed. So those are some basic dynamic warm-up stuff. You might look a little funny on the driving range, but you really should be doing this stuff just to be able to get your body warmed up and loosened up. And then after that, then you just start off doing small swings. So you just start off with little baby pitch shots, trying to just hit it, 30, 40 yards, picking a target, not even worrying about where the ball goes, but just trying to get yourself making okay contact. So I like to do a couple practice swings before each shot and just see where that club's brushing the ground. If it's not brushing the ground, you're not going to get underneath the ball. And then wherever that club is brushing the ground, then just go ahead and set up to it and then hit your shot. As you can see on this screen, it gives us some data with each shot that I hit. So I'll kind of track the ball and all that stuff as I hit the shots. And then what you want to do after that is just build your swing up. Make it a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. So basically you're hitting at like 20 to 30 yards and then 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60. So with that's the range, you can see we have in the distance there are a bunch of barrels. Those are precisely measured out from this area. So you can use that as kind of a guide of how far you're hitting your shots, because that's really important to know how far your ball hits. Most time when I see someone actually hitting at the driving range, they watch where their ball lands and then they just look away. Really important for you to also see how far it rolls afterwards, because obviously if we want to end up close to the hole, we want to see that total distance. Basic fundamentals after that, so that's like warm up. Basic fundamentals we're looking for with the grip is crucial. So when we grip onto the golf club, I'll show you as a righty. So with our top hand, I always see people with what is called generally a weak grip. This is when our thumb runs straight down on top and we have a flat angle from our forearm and the back of our hand, so our wrist doesn't have much angle to it. This generally promotes a very open club face. So the club face will tend to flare out and then you'll miss shots to the right. That causes people then have to manipulate their golf club to try to close it down. So if I have this position and I create centrifugal force and push, you can see how my hand's turned over and now this crease between my thumb and index fingers pointing towards the shoulder. And if I bring it down, you'll see a little bit of an angle from my forearm and my wrist. This is what we call a neutral grip. So a lot of people would think this is strong, but when I look down, all I can see is this knuckle and this knuckle when I'm setting up. This is what we call neutral. When you're holding onto it though, we don't want it into the palm of your hand like this. We want to hold onto it a little bit more into your fingers so that pad or the heel of your palm gets on top of the golf club. So that's extremely important for the top hand. The reason why, if I put it into my palm, I can't hinge my wrist. So ideally what I want to do is create a 90-degree angle from my forearm and the golf club. I can't do that when the club's in my palm. When I put it into my fingers, now I can create that full lever system. So it's really important that people understand how to grip on the club very precisely, especially with the top hand. Now you can go a little bit on the weak side, but we want to make sure it's still in your fingers so you can create that lever system. If you run it in your palm like this, you're in big trouble. It's going to be really difficult for you to create that lever system. So you're going to lose power and generally create a lot of tension. And then there's a strong grip, which is cranked way, way over. This crease points well beyond my shoulder. And you can see a massive amount of angle. This is called extension in the wrist if you want to get medical, but the angle from the forearm and the back of the hand is very significant. And then I can see basically all four knuckles. So my pinky, ring finger, middle finger, and index finger. So this generally promotes a very closed club face. So you're going to tend to snap hook your shots, and then you're not going to be able to do what is called release the club properly, but that will be a little bit more advanced in regards to it. The bottom hand, sorry, I should touch base on that as well, is the bottom hand. We want to get ourselves into a good throwing position. So when I grip onto here, like so, if I'm going to throw this ball, this is how I would throw it if I'm going to skip a stone. So most golfers that I see generally grip onto the club with their hand rolled under like this. So I can see most of the fingernails, the crease between my thumb and index finger, same thing's kind of pointing beyond. My palm's kind of pointing a little bit upward and away. This promotes a very closed club face if you release the club properly. So with a grip like this, people are going to tend to scoop and release like this to prevent the club face from closing down, which is not what we want to do to be able to create speed and power. So if I get myself back into that throwing position and then just leave my hand like that and grip on, this is what we're looking for, is palm facing towards the target, crease between my thumb and index finger when I get myself set up, kind of pointing towards my ear or my shoulder, and just feeling like my index finger is a little bit longer than my thumb. So I see some people also go like this, where their thumb's getting longer. We want to make sure we're in that good throwing position and creating that crease, palm facing our target with that good throwing position. That just makes it much easier to bring that club face back to square and really throw that club through. And then this is what we call a weak grip. I rarely see this. This is like 1 in 1,000 people that I teach, which get their hand too far over, because this just feels awkward. So try all of them, but I do not recommend the weak one. And strong one, usually people do that to try to get their club face more square because they slice it and stuff like that. So it's root cause. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to move on to in terms of ball placement, but if you still had something.
Oh yeah, no, oh no. So, and then some basic fundamentals I see with the average golfer: tension, like, so they get really tight. So you can see how my lead shoulders kind of, grab a righty club. So generally someone has a lot of tension in their lead shoulder. So if we see their shoulder close to their ear, I see this all the time. So what we want to do is just allow, as if I'm carrying like 100 pounds of groceries, which I'm sure all of us are doing right now with the coronavirus. So if we're carrying those groceries, my shoulders and arms are pulled down, let our arms hang down, and now you can see my shoulders are dropped down away from my ear rather than that tension. It's difficult to do when you're so used to setting up this way. But instead of trying to force your shoulder tilt, offer yourself to drop down and then tilt your spine, and that's going to get yourself, plus your right hand's lower than your left anyway, so it's going to create that little bit of that tilt in regards to it. Ball placement, so we got grip, shoulders. I'll touch base on posture real quick as well. So when we get ourselves set up for a golf shot, a lot of people that work at a desk, they tend to have a fairly rounded back because they're typing at a desk and hunched over. So when they get themselves set up for a golf shot, you'll see this rounding effect. You might also see their hips kind of fairly level like this as they're setting up to a golf shot. The golf swing is a very powerful, athletic, dynamic motion. So we want to be in a very stable, balanced position to be able to control this club and have this club do exactly what we want to. So for that to happen, as long as you played some level of sports in any manner, if I'm getting myself athletic, so if I was going to skate backwards or play defense in basketball, or if I'm in baseball and I'm waiting for a ball to, the ball to be hit towards me or to play catch, I'm going to stabilize myself. So my hips get pushed back, knees are bent, chest is somewhat upright, and this is kind of what we're looking for a set position. Okay, if there's a little bit of rounding, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a couple of tour players that do have it, but it's just kind of like this awkward, unstable posture. We want to make sure that we have stability and balance through the motion of our swing, and so this is kind of what we're looking for. Drill you can do to help out with that is just grab the club, place it behind your head, against your tailbone, bow forward, and bend your knees, and just make sure it's touching your tailbone and the back of your head, and also your shoulders. And then that just kind of gets yourself in that straighter, a little bit more athletic position. A good drill for balance-wise is lift your toes and lift your heels. So that gives yourself even balance. If I'm too much towards the toes of my feet, I can lift my heels, but I can't lift my toes, and I got to go back. And if I'm too much towards my heels, I can lift my toes, but I can't really lift my heels. So that's a good kind of drill to make sure that you're in a stable position. You'll see that with some tour players when they're setting up to hit their shot. They're just kind of going and kind of stepping back and forth and kind of balancing themselves before they hit their shot. So that's something that I find really important for the average golfer to do, is just make sure you're balanced, make sure you're stable, and it'll make it a lot easier. You're touching base on ball position. Generally, I have kind of set rule of where you should set the golf ball, but as a beginner golfer, do a couple practice swings, see where your club hits the ground. Once you see where the club hits the ground, then you put the ball in that spot. Then you're going to enjoy it and actually have fun hitting golf shots. Comparison to saying, oh, well, the golf coach told me to put it here, I have to put it here. Well, it's like, that's what I saw on YouTube. Do with what you naturally do with your swing, and then you can learn from there. And just enjoying hitting shots and getting the ball flying up in the air, because that's half the fun of golf, is just smashing it and having it go a long ways.
One of my biggest struggles is is like you've kind of touched on, is getting kind of compressing that ball to actually like get it up and get good spin. I'm not good at that at all. So what would you say would be the kind of best drill that I could, or anyone here could do, or a tip that would help try to get that, you know, the divot, I guess you could say?
Yeah, so first step is getting that consistency on that low, what we call the low point of the swing, which is where the club strikes the ground. So first thing that I want to do is just allow, when I'm swinging, anytime I teach a basic golfer, we want to do what's called the L to L drill. So you swing back to the letter L. Obviously, your grip's really important for that to happen. So if you're not getting into the proper grip, it's extremely difficult for you to get that letter L. So we go L, and when you swing through, we go to the letter L. So we're just going, or backwards L. So it's L to backwards L, or vice versa, whichever way you're seeing it on the screen. And we also want to make sure our body's turning through with it. So more times than not, someone that tends to hit the ground early, first thing they do is, the worst tip I've ever heard in golf is you need a good weight shift. Because when you do a weight shift, you swing back and you slide. Now all of my center of gravity is moved back. This is wherever your center of gravity is. So we have two, we have our pelvis and our upper body. So both of them can be separate or they can be together. So when these center of gravities move, this basically depicts where my low point's going to be. So if I slide and I pivot, this is going to cause my low point to happen back here. If I can keep myself a little more balanced and stable, I can now pivot and slide and get my weight shift a little more forward. Huge topic in golf nowadays is ground force, so how you use the ground. Let me see if I actually have something. A slide disc is amazing. Let's see if I actually can grab one real quick. There we go. So Sport Check or anything along those lines, you can get these slide discs. It's supposed to be for your core and for strength training and helping your lower body strength, but these are amazing for your golf swing. So if I put this on the instep of my foot, so I have half my foot on, half my foot off, if I can keep my pressure more on the instep of my foot, this isn't going to slide. I'm going to be able to push off and turn. If I swing back and I get it on the outside, this is going to slide. And then that causes me to have, you know, that lateral motion of my weight going towards the outside of my foot. So this is a really good drill that you can do to kind of help control that low point, is by keeping yourself a little more centered. You do swing back and then you can push off and turn, comparison to sliding, and then you lose that balance. Don't blame me if you stretch your leg too much. Do this slower so you're not going to pull anything as you're doing that, but it's a really good drill to help keep yourself a little more centered. If you want to save some money, a piece of cardboard also works. Not as well as that, but pretty darn close, especially on these hitting mats. So you can just use that, put it half on your foot, and then if you're sliding, you know you're doing too much lateral motion. Other factors, obviously what your hands and wrists are doing. That's a huge factor in regards to your low point. So I usually try to teach people to control where the whoosh of their golf club is, or where the noise happens, because that's generally where the fastest point the club travels, obviously. So when I swing, if I make, I'm not sure if you can hear that, but I'm making a whoosh noise. So people that tend to hit the ground early will whoosh back here. People that tend to hit the ground further forward will whoosh out here. So just turning the club upside down and focusing on where do you hear that whoosh, that's going to control your low point. So a whoosh is too early back here, whoosh is, you know, out through here, you're going to hit the ground further forward. One big factor in regards to that, which makes it difficult for us to hit the ground, is called early extension. This has to do with hip mobility, so your pelvic tilts. So when we swing through, early extension is when you're trying to turn and rotate, but your hips won't allow for it. So then you pivot and turn your hips up and like this. So you can see here from my setup position, if I early extend, I drift away from this golf club. You want to be able to stay against that club and stay bent over. So getting that hip mobility is crucial to allow for you to be able to have that club be able to strike down and actually stay in your posture. Because if I have poor hip mobility, I'm going to early extend. As you can see, my head's lifting up, and that's going to be really difficult to have that club hit the ground where you want to. So it's, there's parts like that's where the important thing is. Like if your instructor is able to check your mobility, then it determines whether you're physically able to do this or whether you should be doing some stretching to make sure that you're physically capable of doing it. Okay. So sorry to get a little bit technical in that avenue, but it's tricky. But controlling your low point, the key thing, where your balance is, and where that whoosh is happening. Those are the two basic fundamentals. Consistency with your setup position is also crucial. So like I touch base on controlling your low point, do a practice swing. If you're hitting the ground, you know, consistently back here, as long as it's consistent, put the ball there, and then figure out what your ball flight's doing and where it's going. And then from there, you can make adjustments, right? And then you're going to make that solid contact. If you're looking, and I know you touch base on like creating spin on the golf ball for a little more advanced golfers. Spin is acceleration and a descending blow with a lot of loft. So there's this thing called spin loft. So when you hit a golf shot, your angle of attack, so let's say I'm hitting the ball. If my club's traveling across like this, and let's say this sand wedge has 56 degrees of angle. So 56 degrees angle, if my angle of attack is 0, the spin loft would be 56 degrees. But let's say, for example, I angle my club a little bit forward, and let's say it's at 50 degrees. So I've de-lofted at 6 degrees, but then I have 10 degrees going down. My spin loft would actually be 60 degrees. So I would have 4 more degrees of spin happening on the golf ball because of that angle of attack descending down 10 degrees. So that produces more spin. Your golf ball is everything to be able to actually make that spin happen. I can show an example of that is a driving range ball or a distance ball. Those are terrible for spin. If you put your thumb into the outer shell of that golf ball and you try to dig into it, you won't. It will actually, like, you can't create friction against it. It kind of slips on it. If I grab a Titleist Pro V1, a Callaway Chrome Soft, a TaylorMade TP5, all the really expensive golf balls, the outer shell is made of a urethane material rather than, I believe it's polymer, is a distance ball. It's really soft. So you actually dig your nail in and actually see an indentation and grip onto it. It's massive, the differential. I thought my system was broken the first time I used it because the range ball was only spinning around 3,000 RPMs with a sand wedge. And I literally thought it was messed up because I was using a regular range ball. But then when I use, which is fine, like for your hitting on the range, it doesn't matter. It's perfectly fine. But when you're on the golf course and where it lands and when you want to spin, I grabbed a Titleist Pro V1 and hit a shot and it spun almost 10,000 RPM. So I'm like, oh, thank goodness. It's like the system actually works. So whenever I hit balls on the range with an elite golfer, I put up a hitting net and have them use premium balls and do that. Costco, if you're fortunate enough, I bought so many of them just for practice and stuff. It's the Kirkland Performance Plus ball. Unbelievable, like a crazy spin. You lose a little bit distance with the driver because the inner core is not as good quality as the newer balls, but it's like $34 or something like that, $35 for three dozen, I think it is. So it's like, anyways, it's like less than $2 a ball for a high spinning golf ball, and it's awesome. Like it's like for you to be able to create spin, it's absolutely unbelievable. So yeah. So just something to be aware of.
So I got a question from Howard. He wants to ask a little something about ball placement. So Howard, I'm going to unmute you. You are unmuted now. Can you just ask Patrick what you wanted to know? Are you there?
Yeah, I think he's asking, but I can't hear him.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll ask for him then. So he just wants to know, like, where should the ball placement be if you're comparing a driver or an iron? Like, does that change?
Oh, yeah. Oh, drastically. So when you're using, I'll show you as a lefty here, but I can show you as a righty as well. But so when you're using a driver, you're going to be on a taller tee. Generally, you want to tee it up about half the ball above the top line of the driver. So you want it generally about this height. I'm not sure if you can see that.
Yeah, that's
right around there. So you tee up the ball around that height. You can go a little bit higher, but then you're prone to actually hitting it off the top of the golf club, which creates sky marks and all that stuff. So we don't want it too low either. So just about half, so your club can swing a little bit off the ground and hit off the center. Ball position with the driver, always try to set it up towards your front foot. So you just do a routine of club behind the ball, feet together, and move your back foot back. So the foot away from the target. So you as a righty, if you're a right-handed golfer, you'd be like this and move your right foot back. Generally, us as guys, our hip flexibility or mobility is quite limited. So if I keep this foot straight, I can't turn my hips fully, okay, because I just don't have the mobility in my hip. So what I want to do is flare open my front foot. And the reason why is also mobility of your ankle. It's all intertwined. But if I flare that open, now I can actually get full rotation with my hip. So make sure that you flare your front foot. Not a huge fan of the right foot because it just kind of messes things up with too much mobility. But you can if you want to. But the front foot, flare it open, line up the ball off your front foot, and it'll allow for you to rotate through a little bit better. But with irons, really it's the low point, like rather than getting yourself frustrated, trying to have a set ball position, just where your club's brushing the ground, put it there. Obviously, as we want to work on path, like, you know, we had you on here, I'd be able to get you dialed in and help explain where your ball position should be and how to control your low point and stuff like that to get more consistency. But just to make the game more enjoyable and just get yourself in a position where maybe set it up in the middle, do a couple practice swings, see where that club's hitting the ground, and then adjust from there. Now, the Ben Hogan 5 Modern Fundamentals of the Game of Golf. It's this awesome book that was written in 1950 something. My father gave it to me when I was a little kid. I still have it. I love that book. It touches base very in-depthly on where he personally believes the ball position should be, where you start off the wedge slightly back of center, and then each golf club kind of moves a little bit more forward, a little bit more forward. But basically the ball position almost stays the same. You just move your back foot back. And so like your wedge would be here, and then iron, iron, iron. So you keep on moving this back and your front foot stays the same until you get to the driver, you flare your front foot, move it more forward and swing. That's how Ben Hogan, who was one of the best ball strikers in history of the game of golf. So I generally try to coach that for ball position. So like wedges somewhat towards the middle, mid irons, which would be like your 7, 8. You would kind of have a little bit more center, forward of center. And then your long irons, you'd have a couple inches off the instep of your front foot. And then fairway wood, basically an inch off your front foot. And then driver, you know, right off the front heel. That's generally how I position myself to do it. But everyone's a little bit different. It's honestly what works best for you. But controlling your low point and having the bottom of your arc, your swing, just a little bit after that golf ball is the most important, because I don't, like, you put your ball forward, but you're hitting 4 inches behind the ball, like that serves zero purpose, right? So we want to make sure it's in the right spot.
I like that. I never really heard about the height of the ball. That's super helpful. Well, I guess we'll find out if it's helpful if I can actually hit the ball properly, but I've never heard that tip, so I appreciate that. We do have a question from someone watching on Facebook. He's saying every year he gets into a period of a week or 3 where he hits every chip shot or wedge shot thin. He's wondering, like, he thinks might be a confidence thing. Do you have any tips on that?
Oh, I got a million. Come and see me. Just kidding. So with chipping, the big thing that I see is a disconnection between the club and the body. So there's this great analogy of you want the it's basically like you can pretend like this whole thing is a car, okay, and the club head is a book in a car. So if you make this part of the car stop, the book's going to fly forward. That's going to get you to kind of flip through and create a lot of inconsistency. What we want to do is we want it to all go together. So we want the book and the end of the grip, so the club head and the grip, to flow together going through. We don't want to get that happening where this part of the car stops and the book goes flying through. So we want to allow for it to flow together. So big thing with that is making sure your club head and body work together as a team. And so, or just making sure the club and your body work together. So generally a golfer that has chipping, the most important thing is trajectory control. So controlling the flight of your shot. So if I'm flipping this golf club, actually let me give you guys a good visual here. So here's a little nail on a club. So when I start flipping, you're going to see how that nail and that angle or the loft of the club drastically changes. So it goes from pointing a little bit forward and then flip, points towards the sky. That's going to affect the trajectory of the golf ball. So if I can keep this nail and the club kind of staying in the same, going through together, the trajectory of the ball is going to be the same. So what we want to do is be able to have that go through together and not have it flip, so that it causes that inconsistency in the trajectory, which then also causes inconsistency in his low point. So like when you're using your wrist, you can see how there's a big arc and that club goes up and down quite a lot. Where if I'm kind of keeping myself very centered and letting it all flow together, you can see how it's having a little bit more of a shallow motion. Now we don't want to slide that being shallow. We want to keep ourselves basically fairly centered, but just not allowing for ourselves to cup and hinge our wrists too much. That's kind of the key to allow for a little more consistency. When you follow through, if I'm kind of flinging, you'll see how that club face rotates through a whole bunch, and basically the toe of the club points upwards towards the sky. If I'm having it go together, you can see how that club face is kind of pointing more towards the sky rather than the toe of the club. So that's kind of allowing it all to flow together rather than flipping like this. So you can also see with that, when I'm doing that motion, my chest and the club kind of match up rather than flip. And so that's where I see the biggest mistake with the average golfer is just like fling rather than letting it go together. So if like the best example, if I'm going to throw a ball, if I'm going to toss a ball towards you, it's going to move together as a unit. I'm not going to go like this and throw and have my arm move and not my body go through with it. And you just got to understand, the golf swing is very natural. It's not some magical thing that's extremely difficult to do. It's the problem people do, like I said, do too much and they add too many pieces. So my job is to just take away the pieces that they don't need, because they're doing too much. You know, too much tension, too much hand and wrist motion, rather than just keep it nice and relaxed and nice and simple. So
all right, so we're gonna switch it up. Can I have you take us over to the putting green?
absolutely.
We'll spend about like 5-7 minutes and then we'll wrap it up.
Sounds good. I'll show you guys our little fitness studio that hopefully will be getting used at some point shortly once this all blows over. But there you go. So a lovely little putting green. So
how do you make me a better putter? That's my question right now.
I'm up for a challenge. Let me put this down.
There's nothing worse than sticking the green for a birdie attempt and ending up with a double bogey. So
that would be very stressful. I have no idea what that's like whatsoever. So
lucky.
I'm just kidding. It's happened to the best of us. So putting, the most important thing, like if you look at old school videos of guys putting, they actually use their wrist quite a lot. I'm not the biggest fan of that technique, just because we're looking for us to, the reason why I'm not the biggest fan is speed wasn't a huge factor on the greens back in the day because they were really slow. Where nowadays our greens are lightning fast, like they are so much faster than they've ever been before. So I love watching old school putters because it's very interesting how they do it. But the key thing that we want to do is make sure we actually try to reduce our wrist motion as much as we can. So a really easy drill that you can do at home in front of a mirror is grab a golf tee, put it in the end of your grip. So it's pointing upwards like this. And then what we want to do is we want to not let that tee tilt. So you can see when I use my wrist, the tee starts tilting. Now, the way we got to understand is the club is obviously one unit. What influences this side of the club is going to influence that side. So if we want to return our putter face back in the same position that we started, if this is moving and tilting, so is that end of the golf club. That's going to create inconsistency on where this club returns back into. It's not going to be that far off, but it's going to create inconsistency. So if I can keep this staying very level, like so, and not creating that tilting, that's going to allow a much higher probability of that putter returning back in the same position that I started. That's step number one. As long as we can return the putter back in the position that I'm aiming, you're going to hit it down your line, right? So there's only two things that matter in putting, well, three, is where you're aiming. So you can hit it on your intended line, and then you can hit it with a specific speed so you can have the ball travel the distance that you want to. And then lastly is reading green. So understanding the slope and being able to aim precisely depending on the severity of the slope. That's obviously a huge factor in regards to it. So accuracy, very simple. Couple key the basic fundamentals I like to see. Grip, honestly, your world's your oyster. There's three main grips the average tour player does. One is just the neutral, both thumbs running straight down the golf club. I'm a naturalist, so I do this one. There is I'll show you as righties. So you guys would be right hand lower than the left hand. The other one is the exact opposite, so left hand low. And then the other one is called the claw. So the claw is actually, you do right hand low, but you're actually putting your index finger hooked around like this. Now, the key philosophy with all of these that's really important is that your wrist angle is maintained. So what I mean by that is that when I do right hand low, if this wrist starts moving or starts going, we call this flexion to extension. So this is extension, this is flexion. We don't want that motion to happen. So we want to be able to maintain that angle. If I can maintain that angle, that T is not going to wiggle wherever that darn T went. There we go. So when I do that, the wrist is angled and it's maintained, and that T does not wiggle too much. Now, the left hand low, what you're going to notice is that my right hand has a severe amount of angle to it. This is a severe amount of extension. So when I do this, that wrist angle is maintained. If I do this and that T drifts away and this wrist flattens, that's going to cause that manipulation to happen. So generally, left hand low is a good one to kind of help reduce that wrist motion that the right hand low generally can promote. And then the claw, what you'll notice when I do this, how much severe angle I have with my wrist in the golf club. And then this is same thing. You can see how level that T is maintaining and it's not getting manipulated. That's the gist. And they call that the yips. When someone uses their wrist like this, that's when, and people can do that in chipping. People can do that in putting, where they're just flinging their wrist at it. And so the problem that happens with that is then the distance control aspect. So we have accuracy by maintaining the face angle. But when I use my wrist, you got to remember that speed is what influences the distance the ball travels. Well, what is speed? Speed is obviously simple math or physics, is how far an object travels within a certain amount of time. That's what influences velocity. So if I'm using my wrists, I can make this object travel a very far distance in a very short amount of time. That makes that ball accelerate very fast. So if I have a short putt or a medium putt and I create speed by releasing my wrist and flinging through, that's going to make it really difficult for me to control how far that ball travels. Where if I'm using my shoulders and not activating my wrist and using a little bit of my core, this is now easier to control the distance it travels and how long it takes for the travel that distance. Therefore, you're going to be able to control your speed. That's going to allow for you to get your weight control dialed in. So what you'll notice here is with these balls on the ground is I have them spaced out. And what I like to do as a good drill for yourself for distance control is just have 5 balls in your pocket, or you can just use one, but just space it out one large step apart from each one. Then you start close to the hole and you work your way back. And so my goal is, if I had the T in my grip, I'd use that as a little bit of a guide. But this one's going to be generally a very small swing. So I'm only going to go about 3 inches back, 4 inches through, fairly small swing. So for this one, to create more speed, I want to keep the same amount of time. So how long my swing takes, but just make it go a little bit further. So I'm just going to keep it kind of that same total time for my swing and just go a little bit further back, a little bit further through. And that's going to make that ball travel that little bit further and not blow way past or end up too short. And then same thing for this one, just a little bit further back, a little bit further through within that time. And that's going to allow for you to have that ball, as you can see, miss the putt, terrible for me, but within close proximity that you're going to eliminate that terrible 4 putt that you were talking about. So, and then this one a little bit further back, a little bit further through. Same thing, just trying to control that weight so it doesn't go too far. Generally, I like to do a couple practice strokes before each one, but and that's a really good drill for yourself to do, just to get that ball ending up within close proximity and then eliminating the 3 putt. For accuracy and aiming, we have some fancy toys here. We have a laser that we use for aiming your target line and all that fun stuff. We have alignment aids, putting mirrors, everything in between. Ones I recommend for yourself are, this thing's called the Vizio Putting Mat. This thing's unbelievable. It just basically helps you trace your club down your target line through the motion of your swing. Phil Kenyon, he's the head guy for Vizio. It's based out of Europe, so it's pretty darn expensive to get shipped out, but it's absolutely phenomenal. American company is Eyeline. They do putting mirrors and different training aids as well. Unbelievable for putting. This one's obviously for us to get your eyes positioned over top of the ball and all that fun stuff. Dave Peltz, he has this lovely thing. It's called the Putting Tutor. I'm going to give you a tip to save you $60. So this little guy right here, what you do is you put that down on the ground and you have two lovely metal marbles. And you put that at one point here. And then so when you hit your putt, your job is to get the ball to roll in between that gap. So you position it here, line it up, and your job is to putt it through those metal balls without hitting them. If you do that, you're starting it down the right line. The easiest way for you to save some money doing this is if you're on the putting green outside, just put 2 tees in the ground by positioning a ball down where you want to intend your ball to roll through, and then put 1 tee on one side, 1 tee on the other. Or if you want to make even super lazy, you can go like this and put 2 balls down instead, and just get yourself putting in between that gap. So you're getting yourself kind of focusing on making sure you're hitting it down the right line and not hitting those balls. And the nice thing is when you do hit one of these golf balls, it tells you whether your putter face was open or closed. So it makes it a nice, easy drill for yourself to do to work on your accuracy. So beginning stages, usually I suggest start off with accuracy, work on that, do close putts. Once you start making 5 putts in a row within 3 feet, move your way back a little bit. And then once you feel comfortable, you're hitting it down that right line through that gap, then just do that spaced out drill. I call it the ladder drill, where you space out just 1 step evenly all the way through. You can do that with 5 balls. I do it with all the way up to 10 balls, so it's within 30 feet, because each step's basically approximately 3 feet. So
awesome. And that was so good. So many awesome tips. I know everyone's probably learned a lot. So we are going to wrap it up here. If anyone does have any more questions for Patrick, I'm going to throw up his information here. Did it? There we go. All right. So here's his information. Take a screenshot, take a picture, follow him on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. He is also offering free virtual swing analysis. So you can contact him and reach out to him about that. That is free for right now, but it's a limited time. The prize that we're about to draw is for an in-person swing analysis, but take advantage of all the tips he's giving you right now. Mother's Day is just around the corner. Father's Day is just around the corner. So hint, hint, everyone. Golf lessons is an easy gift to give everyone. So Patrick, thank you so much for all the tips you brought on here. I'm just going to share one thing before we draw for the prize. Again, I just want to thank the Chamber for helping me put this whole thing together. You guys have been amazing. Anyone out there, if you guys have any questions about an injury or any aches or pains you're experiencing right now, you want advice on anything, feel free to call our hotline right there. You'll see the number 778-355-3050. You can talk to any one of our physiotherapists, chiros, massage therapists, and our kinesiologists. So feel free to reach out. For future webinars and recordings of these webinars, you can go to my website here and just go to the webinars tab. You can also visit the Chamber website, go to their events page, and you can register for all these ones coming up. If anybody has any suggestions of topics they'd like to see, please let us know. Also, we have coming up next week, Innovative Fitness. They're gonna basically talk to us about, show us some demonstrations, how to stay nice and mobile and fit. They're gonna talk a little bit about their platform they're using for personal training virtually. And then on Friday, I believe it is, we have Strawberries and Sunshine Clinical Counselor. We're going to talk a little bit about mental health and how to deal with the anxiety and stress of our current situation. So super important topic. And then the following week, wow, that's embarrassing. Hold on. Stop that. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. And the following week, we're doing wine tasting for free. So a little wine tasting class. So that's going to be pretty awesome. So stay tuned.
Does the wine get delivered to us, or?
Well, I will tell you the wines that you should go get.
Okay, perfect.
Technically, you're going to deliver the wines to yourself, but the lessons on what it's supposed to taste like and what you're going to, the notes and the hints you'll get, those will be delivered to you for free through.
Man, you got a fun job there, buddy.
It's pretty awesome. I got free brisket and beer yesterday. I think the wine I'll have to buy, but the lessons are free, so that's good.
That's awesome. Oh, and I wanted to do a quick thank you to you guys as well for Aaron hosting us together, and Stephanie from the Tri-City, and doing everything you can to help support us small businesses out here. And just want to give a shout out to Westwood Plateau and give you guys a heads up that we are, Westwood Plateau is open. The executive 12-hole course, they're just doing, or actually doing stricter regulations than most other golf facilities. So executive course is only doing 2-person tee times, no carts. It's a beautiful walk. It's a short little course, only 12 holes. Great for beginner golfers to go out and just get some fresh air. Especially on a beautiful day like today. It's a little bit sunny right now, which is lovely. So you get some good vitamin D. Westwood Plateau Country Club, just because of pace of play purposes, they're also doing only twosomes. It is cart mandatory, but they actually sanitize their golf carts, every single one, before each round. So it's guaranteed a safe environment, and only 2 people. So pace of play is really fast. You're only, it's maximum, I think, 3.5 hours for you to play a full 18 holes. Price is extremely reasonable. It is a hot commodity, so you do want to book in advance to be able to get that tee time, but they're doing some really good stuff in regards to making sure they can provide a safe learning environment, and just a safe environment for you guys to enjoy. For us at Lago Golf Academy, our plan is to open up, except for just only private lessons. So as you can see, the space we have here is very spacious. All instructors will be wearing face masks. It's only 1 instructor in this room at a time. So it guarantees the lowest point of contact. And we're also going to be taping off the ground to make sure it's a minimum 6 feet distance. And access to, obviously, even with the instruction, we're able to use the launch monitor and video analysis. And then after your lesson, that's the one thing I actually forgot to state, is after your lesson, you're able to get a video web lesson. So when you guys, if you want to get your swing analyzed, you download on your phone an app called V1 Golf. With that, you just record your swing through the app, and then you select myself and Lago Golf Academy as your facility and as your coach. And then with that, you can just send me the video, and then I'll give you a free analysis. So once, obviously, everything opens up and back up and running, you'll get the same type of analysis here with all your information in regards to what you need to work on, and video tips and drills on how to improve your golf game. So just wanted to throw that in there and give you guys a heads up. So.
Thank you. And yes, it is a beautiful course. It's tough, but it's beautiful. Okay, so here is the draw. Nicolas Granbois. Well, it's Nikki G, but I know the last name.
Congratulations, Nikki.
Patrick, I'll hook you guys up with the contact information. And again, thank you very much for your time, your tips. That was amazing. And everyone stay safe out there. Spread the word about these webinars and keep registering. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Have a good one, guys.